Salut, ça va? Santé?
Coucou, bienvenue from France. Welcome back to the show where we talk about life, different perspectives, and un petit peu de français, usually with a glass of wine or occasionally a spritz. Our topic today is the American habits that French helped me see in myself. I'm not going to say that they cured them, but they at least helped me see them in myself. So I'm going to share those with you today. But before I get to that, it is officially summer travel season, as many of you know. I have received lots of notes about where people are going, and a lot of Americans are coming to Europe and coming to France, south of France, etc. So super excited. I thought it might be fun because I have a lot of French friends here as well as expat friends here to just share what people do that live in France and what they do for the summer and places they go. That's something I don't think many people have access to hearing. I think you hear what other Americans, if you live in the US, do, or if you live in the UK, what other British people do. But you don't necessarily get like a full international perspective of where people are going for the summer that live in Europe. So I'm going to share that. So people, I would say, shy away from the big touristy areas that a lot of us come to know very well. So, for example, if they're going to Greece, which people definitely are, they're not going to Santorini and Mykonos. They are likely doing, for example, a lot of you know Isabel. Every year she goes to Corfu, which is one of the Greek islands that's supposed to be really, really beautiful. I've never been. A lot of people go to Milos and Perros and Antiperros. I have been to Perros and Antiperros last summer when we took a sailing trip through the Greek Isles, which I think I should talk about that another time. It sounds really fabulous in theory. In reality, it is like camping on the sea. Like it's challenging in a lot of ways. I was very seasick, but also very cool because you get to see islands that are not very easy to get to. So Perros is one that's like very well known now. It's kind of all over Instagram. But I actually preferred Antiperros, which is the smaller version off of the bigger island of Perros. And the town is just so beautiful. Like it's a little less, like a little less discovered, but still super cool, like great restaurants. And again, just really beautiful. So that's like one place I would say Greece for sure. Malta, which is its own country off of Sicily. So Sicily, as you know, is part of Italy. And then below Sicily is Malta. A lot of people go there because it's kind of a cool blend of different cultures and it's its own country, which is pretty cool. In Italy, of course, everyone loves Italy. Even the French love Italy. And they go, definitely, you hear about all the lakes because they're pretty close to here. So, Lake Como, of course, but less so than that. Lake Garda is a big destination because it is so much closer and less touristy than Lake Como. And then a few other places. Croatia is definitely, I'm sure a lot of you have heard, but like I really want to go to the islands there and just the country in general. But it's supposed to be super beautiful, a lot less touristy and not as expensive as Greece, for example, which is definitely much more popular. And then I had the privilege of going, this is now like probably 10 years ago, to Turkey and the coast of Turkey, like Bodrum and some of that area. And that is just absolutely fabulous as well. And really feels like a complete world apart from Western Europe. So if you're looking for just a totally different experience, Istanbul and the coast of Turkey is really, really beautiful. So, just a few things. I can put these in the show notes. If you have any questions or want to share where you guys are going this summer, I would love to hear. It's always just fun to share cool vacation ideas. It's kind of one of the first things I would say people bond about in France. Like, it's funny. No one would ask, like, what do you do for work or what have you been up to? At your job. Instead, it's like, oh, where are you going on vacation and where did you just last vacation? And that's it's interesting because that's not as common in the US, but very common here. And people love to share where they're going, what they did, where they stayed, what they recommend for you. And I think that's super cool. So thought I would be a little bit français today and share that with you as well. Okay, so our topic today is the American habits that French helped me see in myself. as you guys can see, it just started raining. I have the windows open, so hopefully I don't get wet. But if I do, I will pause and close the window. But it's been literally on a heat wave and so hot. And this is the first time we've had rain in a really long time. And it's the day I wanted to record this. So, anyways, I guess we'll just see how it goes. Okay, so I, as you guys know, have been living in France for 3 years. I just want to say, I don't think France has like cured me of anything, well, maybe a bit of anxiety, but it's just exposed me to a lot of things. Like, and honestly, when you're exposed to things, it's probably even more uncomfortable than being just completely cured of something because you notice things that are very different from how you do things. So, like, I noticed right away that the French weren't rushing, they weren't multitasking, they weren't constantly talking, like I just mentioned, about productivity or self improvement or what the best parenting strategy is or what their side hustle is in addition to their regular job. They weren't talking about like every new optimization, like app and hack you need to find to make your life easier. They weren't always talking about like what's coming next and how they're planning for the next 5 years. Like, it just is not part of the culture. And at first, it like really drove me crazy when we moved here because I just remember like walking by these people. They're sitting at a cafe on a random like Tuesday afternoon when in the US, like almost everyone would be working. And they're just lingering over a petite cafe. And even if their cups were empty, they were still sitting there. And nobody seemed in a hurry. Nobody appeared to have anywhere like urgent to be. And at first, I wasn't like admiring this. I was just confused. Like, don't these people have anything to do? Like, who has jobs here? Like, how do they make money? Like, what are they doing? Like, why aren't they trying to accomplish more? And I now realize this question says so much more about me than it actually does about them. And so I kind of boiled it down to, and I wrote a bit of a list, and I'm going to just tell you what my American habits were because I think a lot of you might share the same, and let me know if you do. And these aren't necessarily American. I think they're also British, Australian, from a lot of my friends that live there, that these are just sort of typical things that we take for granted that we do. So this rushing everywhere is definitely one. Like, the reason a lot of Americans wear workout clothes when they're at the grocery store or getting lunch is because, in my mind, it saves time. Like, it's like one less outfit change you have to think about. You are already like, maybe you do decide to work out that day, and then you're already in your workout clothes and you're ready to go. So it's kind of like you're cramming more into the day by not having to think about like multiple outfits or waste time like changing outfits. And that way you can be more productive. So that's, I would say, in my mind, the impetus behind it. And maybe also it's more comfortable. I don't know. I don't find workout clothes super comfortable, but that's just me. They also, I would say, I do this and I still kind of do this, but like you get to the end of your day and you're kind of like exhausted, worn out. You're measuring it like you're the value of your day is by like how much did I get done on my to-do list? Like, did I accomplish a lot at work? Like, oh, did I make dinner? Did the kids like finish their homework? Did they go to bed on time? Like, it's like this mental load of everything in your head is like constantly going, and you're sort of measuring yourself by that idea of like being accomplished and productive, and therefore that equals success of the day. That does not really happen as much for me. Yes, it still does. I mean, I love a to-do list. I still love the feeling of crossing things off a to-do list. Like, don't get me wrong. But I now I kind of like to measure my day of like, well, did I like connect with my children? Did I connect with my husband? Did I do something good for myself today? Did I advance like work that I really, really want to do? Did I feel good about like decisions I made? Like, just, I don't know, just different than like, I don't know, like maybe it's more about experiencing the day than getting through it. And I think that's actually what I'm paying most attention to. And one habit that's kind of changed me is like, I sort of woke up to the fact that you're meant to experience your life, which sounds so crazy, rather than just go through the motions of it. So, for any of you that are going through the motions of it, like just ask yourself instead, like, what did I experience? Like, did I have great connections? Did I take moments for myself? Did I feel happy about like decisions I made? Did I progress work in a way that made me passionate about what I'm trying to build or do? I mean, those I think for me now are the questions, and I just really like those questions. So, anyways, okay, that gets me to the third one I want to talk about. Okay, the third one, this is a very American perspective, but this idea of keeping busy. I think this is like very highly valued in the US. Like, you don't want to slow down or do anything that makes you appear lazy because that's not really valued. And I was thinking back to my own childhood, and my grandma used to ask my mom every time when she was on the phone, and they used to call each other every day, "Oh, how are you keeping busy today?" And I just now thought about that question because I FaceTime with my mom and she asked me, "Are you keeping busy?" or "How are you keeping busy?" As if like that is the question that we should be asking ourselves. And I think it was just routine and maybe nobody really thought about it. But I feel like now the question we should be asking is not like this question about keeping busy, but maybe like, how are you taking time for yourself? How are you slowing down a bit? How are you cutting out things that don't matter and focusing on what does? And in France, there's literally the art of doing nothing, and it's respected, it's admired, it's appreciated. I'm not saying all the time. Like the French work very, very hard, and I see that as well. But there's a time and a space for it. And there is also a time and a space where you are allowed to pause, to just be, to exist, to listen to yourself, to breathe, to connect, to no phones. And that is also highly valued. And so I am trying to also kind of move away from the inherited, I would say, conditioning that I need to be keeping busy so I don't appear lazy, to move to a bit of the French way of like not feeling guilty if I want to take a minute and also just have that headspace so I can actually just be and think. And that allows me to be more creative and more present. The other American habit that I see, I was very much susceptible to, and I see it a lot, is this constant worry about how you're raising your children. Like this starts very, very young. Like I remember my son was, let's see, it just started preschool. He's like 2.5, 3. And the preschool director at our conference was like, "Oh, your son doesn't play with anyone. He prefers to play by himself." And he wasn't saying that in a negative way. But of course, my mind went to like, is he not social? Is he never going to be social? Is he antisocial? Like, this, I mean, that's crazy. He was like 2.5, 3. He just wanted to build his own train set. Like, he didn't want to share with the other kids. Like, he's super social now, and it doesn't really matter. And even if he wasn't, that's also okay. Like, but this idea of like kids need to be socialized, like there's some sort of dog at a dog park that needs to be okay being around other people. Like, yes, socialization is important, but it's not like how we should measure the success necessarily, in my opinion, of a child. Is my child in enough extracurriculars? Are they trying enough new things? Are they being exposed to enough sports and instruments and things at a young age so they can eventually choose and be really good at one? And maybe that'll get them a scholarship into college, and then it'll be free and blah, blah, blah. I mean, the like list goes on with that. And then even just like, how are you parenting them? And did you approach that conversation right? And what did the child think? And what was their reaction? And how did you react? And so much thought goes into this, right? And I'm not even going to mention like the academic track and how you kind of construct a path at a young age for a child to set them up for professional success for their entire life. And it's pretty normal, I would say, as a parent in the US to read a lot of parenting books, like, or read parenting blogs, or Dr. Becky's obviously very, very popular. And it's like at every age, you're trying to ensure that you are being the best parent and your child is like following milestones and developing at where they're supposed to be. And I kind of have learned from the French here that like, what if we just made sure our kids were well cared for and that they enjoyed being a kid? And it's so interesting because my French friends, like many of them have never read a parenting book in their life. Like they trust themselves that they'll figure it out. They have literally quoted me like, people have been raising children for millions of years, and everyone's okay. And everyone's going to have trauma in some way, and we can't necessarily like prevent that through a million parenting books and strategies. And they're trusting that their kids will figure it out, that they'll figure out life, they'll set them up in the best way they can. But they're also trusting that perfection and this like best, like isn't required. Like sometimes I would say that they think that a good childhood is good enough and they're trusting that. And that is resonating with me a lot more because I watch my kids be less involved in extracurriculars than they were in the US and more time to kind of just be kids and be creative and have downtime. And they're a lot less anxious than I would say a lot of my counterparts are with children the same age in the US. So I'm not saying I have the answers, but I'm just saying I'm seeing another culture do it differently, and I appreciate that too. And then I think the other challenge with being a parent right now in the US is like you're kind of living in constant fear. Like you're sort of waiting for the next shoe to drop. Like you're trying to set them up for success, but you're also concerned about like their safety or the political climate or these active shooter drills or anything else that's like real fear on a daily basis. And I think that like sort of just lives in our like a low level of anxiety like all the time. And I think my fear has dissipated a lot since moving to France. I think people are a lot more like laissez-faire about parenting. I think like they're just trusting a lot more. I think there's also just less like fear mongering going on in the French culture. Like we're not constantly here being exposed to like, oh, you need this to stay skinny and you need to try this new treatment to not age. And there's this workout trend that's like immediately going to like promise this kind of result. And it's like you feel like you need to be constantly jumping on these things so you don't fall behind. And I think a lot of that I'm realizing leads to this sort of like overconsumption culture. We think we need to buy these things, these services, these products to like keep up and like to sort of try to erase the fear in our head. And we also think like if we get more stuff, maybe things will be better and maybe we'll be happier and maybe we'll be more fulfilled and our kids will be happier. And so we buy like more products, shoes, clothes, toys, like anything that makes us feel good in the moment, like the dopamine hit, and kind of also, I would say, keeps up with those around us. And I am completely still 100% guilty of this. Like, my husband is a complete minimalist, and he's always like, question yourself before you buy that. Do you really need that? Is that something that's going to change your life? And he has me listen to these podcasts about like how experiences matter more than things and to like choose wisely on things. And honestly, I'm kind of buying into it because it's also the French way of living. Their houses aren't overcrowded with stuff. They don't buy storage. Like when I asked a French friend where she'd recommend buying like the Pottery Barn or Crate and Barrel like storage for kids' toys, she was like, why do you need that? Like, do you have that many toys that you need like an entire huge storage unit? And I was like, well, I just wanted a few shelves for the, I don't have a playroom, but like the back of the family room. So anyways, the story in that was like, that's just bizarre here. And you won't see that like marketed or very available besides places like IKEA. So I think that gets me to our next, like the other American habit that I definitely fell into living in Marin County in California. We care so much about what people around us think, like our parents, our neighbors, our moms, the other moms at school. Like it's about constantly sort of like, at least it was for me, and you guys may not feel the same, but like this, like sort of holding it all together on the outside, even if you're falling apart on the inside. It's like we'd rather hide behind the stuff and the facade to avoid like the actual emptiness that we might feel. And we don't really ask ourselves the questions of like, how do I feel waking up to what I'm doing today? Or how does my body feel? Or like, I think the biggest question that I'm trying to ask myself, like, if no one else was watching, would I choose this life? And my answer right now to that is like, absolutely. My answer to that in California would have been, I'm not sure. So I can't say that the French don't have this problem. There's definitely a bit of like comparison and, looking at what everyone else is doing. But I can tell you that it's to a lesser extent because it's just not like so in your face. It's because culturally here, things, and if you have wealth, it's meant to be hidden, not necessarily flaunted. So you're just less, I would say, like it's less overt here than what at least I saw in the US when we lived there. And then I think another thing I'm also realizing that an American habit I fall into is this like sort of constant feeling like judged or guilty over behaviors that are bad, like marketed as bad or science says they're bad. And a lot of them are not good, right? Like, of course, we know cigarettes are bad for you, and yet more French smoke considerably more than Americans. But I would say they're also doing more positive things that many Americans aren't. Like they are eating entirely cleanly, like not snacking, no junk food culture. They are walking a ton. They are, I would say, like taking time to slow down. They're not like on this hustle culture rushing through life. And so, like, maybe they want a cigarette and maybe it's not that bad because the rest of their life, like, balances the one negative habit. And like I've been sort of realizing this because when I go to the US and a lot of my friends there are part of like the sober culture movement, which I think is great and I'm definitely not judging that. And understandably, like alcohol consumption is not necessarily good for us. I'm very much aware. As you can see through this podcast, I don't really want to feel guilty about if I want to enjoy a glass of wine or two. And I think it's very culturally integrated in France. And I definitely think I try to live the most like healthy and best way I can in so many parts of my life. And I sort of just want to let go of that judgment and guilt that I used to feel if I was not participating in the latest like health craze, I would say, in the US. The other thing, okay, this is my last one of habits. I think there's a natural habit and a tendency of Americans, including myself, to sort of delay rest or pleasure until work is done. So this is like, okay, you have to earn it. Like you've got to earn the ability to like relax on the couch at the end of the day for 15 minutes to watch your favorite show. And you can only do that if you've like worked really hard that day and accomplished what you were meant to accomplish. And maybe your work is like kind of done for that day. And I mean, let's be honest, the work is never really done. And so you're just kind of delaying gratification of actually living life. And I'm like, F that. Okay. I love the French mentality. Like, find joy in every single day. We're meant to enjoy, like, enjoy rest. Like, don't feel guilty. Have un kiff, which is like a little treat every day. And I think this is like kind of also not acceptable because in the US, it's like everything is coming down to working so you can retire. And people's goal is like to retire as young as possible so that then they can then go enjoy their life, where then they can go rest and relax. And maybe you can have like 2 weeks of vacation a year. And that's like the most, I would say, if you're in a company, you're likely to get. And you may or may not even take those if you're a really hard working, like achieving American. And so you're really just looking forward to the retirement instead of the life we're actually in today. And I am really trying to drop that. Like, yes, I have work to do as well, but I'm not making that like I can't take a break in the middle or enjoy something great about my day and delay gratification until the work, quote unquote, is done. So I think the way this also comes to a head is like in the US, we're always trying to be, I would say, like the better version of yourself. And in fact, I said that or I wrote that somewhere, and my French tutor said, why did you write that in French? And I wrote it in English, but she said, why are you trying to be a better version of yourself? That actually implies that the version right now is not great. And I was like, that's so interesting. I think it's just a very common expression. And she proposed, maybe it's just a different version of you. And maybe you were a great version when you lived in the US and you're a great version now, and they're just different. And I like that. And I think we also, if you think about it, we rarely allow ourselves to simply be. And maybe that's the thing France has taught me more than anything. Like not necessarily how to eat or how to dress or even how to slow down, but like just to notice. I think now my advice to you would be just notice when you're rushing through what could be a beautiful day. Just notice when you're solving problems in your head that don't even really maybe exist yet, that you're catastrophizing may exist, that then you're trying to come up with solutions for. Just notice when it's actually anxiety disguising itself in your head as productivity. And when you're keeping busy, when you actually, your body is just really wanting to slow down. And I think that's all. I'm sharing this because all of this comes to, I'm a very anxious person and I am working on that. And all of these habits, I would say that I considered American are, yes, maybe in some way, shape, or form American, but they're also about like just being an anxious person, but thinking that I was being ambitious and being really responsible and being a good parent and taking care of everyone. And sometimes I was, sure. And sometimes I think I was just scared, honestly. I think I was scared that if I stopped moving, I would have to actually like listen to myself. And maybe I didn't want to hear those answers. And I think these days, like, I'm just trying something different and I'm not really good at it, honestly. I'm not perfect. I'm not even consistent. I mean, I still love a good to-do list. I still catch myself rushing. I still fall into these habits. But I just really try now to wake up to the life I'm actually in. And I don't think it required necessarily me moving to France or leaving corporate America or changing a lot of things, but it did require me to at least stop and become aware of the things that were quietly, I would say, running in my life all along. Like these habits, these fears, these stories, these assumptions I carried, all of these beliefs that I just inherited from schooling and the way I was raised. And I never questioned them. And it just kind of made me question. And I don't think France is curing them necessarily, but it's giving me enough distance to actually see them. And I think now it's once I see them, I felt the need to do a podcast episode on them because it's very hard for me not to see them now and not to recognize them both in myself and when I see them in those around me. So I would say if you can take one thing away from this episode, just pay attention, just notice some of these habits. And maybe the next step is to take a little small step in making a change if that's what you want to do. So thank you for listening. I'm going to read a few comments and you may hear the rain in the background. It is pouring. So thank you everyone who listens and for leaving your comments. I'm going to read three comments today from our listeners. This is from a woman. She doesn't have her name, but she has a 257 area code, I think somewhere in the US. It's a +1. She said, I just came back from a 14-day trip to France, my first one, stayed in Paris most of the time. I loved how much effort people put in to dress nicely, even jeans. They elevate the nice look with loafers, scarves, and jackets. The food was amazing and incredibly cheaper to eat out than in the US and obviously more delicious. And people in general were very nice. I came back to the US, I went grocery shopping, and oh Lord, seeing full-grown adults in pajamas and house shoes completely shocked me. Not very nice. That was really funny because I am also shocked how people leave the house now in the US. Okay, another from Melinda Price. It was what I've learned as she listened to what I've learned as an American living in France. She said, this was my favorite episode of the podcast. Thank you for sharing your insights. I can tell you've been thinking deeply about your experiences in France, and I appreciate you sharing. Well, thank you, Melinda. And then Liz K listened to the same episode, what I've learned as an American living in France. And she said, lovely episode. Thanks for your take on the restaurants. It makes sense now why it takes so long to get a menu. Well, I'm glad I could add some clarity there. And trust me, I still get frustrated with that too. So, okay, well, thank you so much. Good luck on the habits. I hope that this helped a bit. And please let me know what you thought. Leave your comments and share this with a friend. And be sure to follow on cuckoo.pod. Thank you. Au revoir.